trip that was already off to a rough start. My flight got delayed because of a mechanical issue, and after sitting on the tarmac for hours while they fixed it, I finally landed, exhausted and way behind schedule. I was supposed to check in at the hotel around 6 p.m., but by the time I actually arrived, it was after midnight. I already wasn't in the best mood. The room had been booked and fully paid for, and I had my confirmation number ready. But of course, when I got to the front desk, they informed me they'd given my room away because I was so late. I get it, kind of, but I also wasn't about to sleep in my car. The event I was attending was in the same hotel, and I wasn't going anywhere. I kept it together and stayed polite but firm, making it clear I wasn't leaving without a room. After some back and forth, the woman at the desk said they had one available, but there was a catch. It was under construction, not something they normally rent out, but they could get it cleaned up enough for the night if I was willing. As long as there's a bed and clean sheets, I told her, I'll take it. Big mistake. When I walked in, I immediately knew something was wrong. The room was a mess. Part construction zone, part crime scene. The carpet had plastic tape down over large, dark stains. It was obvious what they were covering. I did not need anyone to tell me it was blood. There was a smell in the air too. Not fresh, but just faint enough to make my skin crawl. The walls had been hastily patched and primed, but whoever did the job wasn't fooling anyone. The stains underneath the primer bled through just enough that you could still make out the spatter pattern. I've seen enough crime shows to recognize what I was looking at. There was a large section on one wall where you could tell someone had been hit repeatedly. The blood splatter told the story. First impact, then smears as the person tried to get up, and finally, a large stain where they collapsed and did not move again. There were multiple small holes in the drywall, like someone had gone wild with a screwdriver or maybe a knife. They'd been patched and sanded over, but they did not bother to paint, so they were just rough white spots against the beige walls. They'd at least brought in a new bed and a TV from somewhere else in the hotel, so it wasn't like I had to sleep on a crime scene mattress. I kept telling myself, it's fine, just sleep and get out in the morning. But every time I looked around, it was hard not to imagine what had happened there. The worst part was the ceiling. They had primed over blood spatter there too. You could see the arc of it, starting near the headboard and stretching toward the middle of the room. I lay on the bed, staring at it, trying to convince myself it did not matter. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't shake the thought that someone died in that very spot, and now I was sleeping under the aftermath. And I barely slept. Every noise from the hallway made me jump. Around 3 a.m., I heard what sounded like a knock on my door. I didn't check. I wasn't about to open it for anyone in a place like that. By morning, I was more than ready to leave. When I handed the key back at the front desk, the woman asked if everything had been okay, and I just smiled and said, "Yep, no problems." What was I supposed to say? That they put me in a murder room? I later Googled the hotel and found out there had been an incident a few months earlier. A stabbing right there on the 3rd floor. Case closed, according to the article, which must have been why they felt okay putting me in there. I get that hotels are a business, and they don't want to waste a perfectly good room, but they could have at least warned me about what I was walking into. Even now, I can still picture that room, especially the ceiling. I wonder if they ever finished fixing it up, or if it's still sitting there, waiting for the next unlucky guest. When I was about 4 years old, my family stayed at the Cedar Lodge Motel in Yosemite. If you're familiar with the name, you probably know it as the place where Cary Stayner worked right before he murdered 4 women. At the time, of course, we had no idea who he was. Looking back, it still gives me the chills. It had been a long drive, 3 kids under 7, crammed in the backseat for hours, my parents tired and cranky after dealing with all of us. By the time we finally pulled into the motel, it was late, and we just wanted out of the car. My dad went inside to check in, but my mom stayed behind. The second we got there, something felt off to her. I remember how tense she got, like she couldn't quite figure out what was wrong, but knew something was. She kept telling my dad we should leave and find another place to stay, reservation or not. My dad was exhausted though. It was late, and we had nowhere else lined up, so he convinced her to stay. Just one night, he said, "We leave first thing in the morning." My mom wasn't happy, but she gave in. She grabbed my brother's hand in mine and would not let go as we walked into the lobby. I can still see her scanning the place like she expected something bad to happen at any second. I thought she was just being a little dramatic at the time. I mean, it was just a motel. But now I know better. My mom's gut feelings saved us more than once, and this time was no different. To try to calm her down, my dad suggested we hit the pool. He thought a swim might help everyone relax after a long day. We got changed and headed out there, but there weren't any towels. My mom called the front desk and asked for some to be brought out. A few minutes later, a man walked in with towels. He barely said a word and just handed them to my mom. I'll never forget how she just froze the second she saw him. Her whole body tensed, and she grabbed us so fast it almost hurt. She did not even wait for my dad. She just hauled us out of the pool and back to our room. Once we were inside, she locked the door and shoved the dresser in front of it. My dad thought she was just being ridiculous, but she wouldn't budge. We all ended up sleeping in the same bed that night, with the dresser blocking the door. I remember thinking it was so weird, but I figured maybe she was just being overprotective. The next morning, we left without even looking back. My mom couldn't stop talking about how evil the motel felt. She said that man, the one who brought the towels, had this cold, dead look in his eyes. She swore there was something truly wrong with him. My dad brushed it off, but my mom was so freaked out that she made us promise always to listen to our gut. A couple of months later, my parents were up late watching the news. A story came on about a man who had been arrested for murdering a woman and 2 young girls in Yosemite. My mom sat up straight and said, "I bet it happened at that motel." And then Cary Stayner's face appeared on the screen, along with the words, "Cedar Lodge." My mom let out this horrified gasp and whispered, "That's him. That's the man who brought us those towels." I don't know if Cary Stayner was already planning his next move that night, or if he was just watching us, but it still makes my skin crawl to think about how close we were to him. What if my mom hadn't been paying attention? What if she hadn't listened to her gut? I try not to let my mind go there too often, but it's hard not to. We've never been back to Yosemite, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. My mom's rule has stuck with all of us ever since. When every part of you is screaming that something is wrong, listen, trust your gut, and get the hell out. I've been sitting on the story for a while, but after hearing similar ones on your channel, I'd figure I share mine. This happened back in 2018 when I was traveling for work. I work for a logistics company, and whenever we're in Salt Lake City, they'd always put us up at the Shiloh Inn downtown. It wasn't the nicest hotel, but it was clean and close to where we needed to be. The story isn't actually mine, but it happened to a coworker of mine named Jeff. He was on the same job with me, staying in the same hotel. We were there for about a week, and for the first few nights, everything was normal. But then, one night, something really strange happened. Jeff said he was dead asleep when he got woken up by the sound of kids running up and down the hallway outside his room. He figured it was just some family getting back late, or maybe some kids being rowdy after a long day. It was annoying, but not the weirdest thing. He tried to ignore it, but the noise went on and on. Laughing, little feet running, and what sounded like a game of tag or something. Finally, he'd had enough. He got up, went to the door, and opened it to tell them to knock it off. But when he opened the door, the hallway was empty. Not just empty, completely silent. No sign of anyone. He thought maybe the kids had ducked into another room, but the sound hadn't stopped. He could still hear them. It sounded like they were right there in the hallway, even though no one was there. Figuring they were in a room nearby, Jeff called the front desk to complain. The guy who answered seemed way too calm about it. He just told Jeff there weren't any kids staying on that floor, and that the noise would probably stop soon. He even offered to send up some earplugs. Jeff was annoyed. He wasn't hearing things. There were definitely kids running around. But he wasn't about to argue, so he hung up and went back to bed. He said the noises stopped after a while, and he managed to get some sleep. The next morning, while we were checking out, Jeff mentioned it to the clerk at the front desk. You know how they always ask, was everything satisfactory with your stay? Well, Jeff gave a pretty honest answer. He told her about the noise, the kids running around, and how the other guy at the desk basically brushed him off. The woman's whole vibe changed. She looked uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure how to respond. Then, in a lowered voice, she said something like, "We're really not supposed to talk about it with guests, but if you have a chance, look up Rachel David and the hotel's history. It might explain what happened." And Jeff did not say anything right away, but I could tell the comment bugged him. We got into the van to head to the airport, and while we were driving, he pulled out his phone and looked it up. I remember watching his face change as he read. Rachel David was a woman who, back in 1978, threw her 7 kids off the balcony of the 11th floor of that hotel when it was called the International Dunes. Then she jumped herself. It was one of those moments where neither of us really knew what to say. Jeff just showed me his phone, and we sat there reading about it until we got to the airport. We did not talk much after that. I've stayed in a lot of hotels for work over the years, but that one really stuck with me. Jeff swears up and down that what he heard wasn't just his imagination. And honestly, after learning what happened there, I believe him.